Okay, so I'm going to create this video as a tutorial for Symfony. There are a few things that we need to note while we're working on Windows. Most of the tutorials in class have been on a Mac. So I know that most of you guys have Windows, so I try to make this on my computer at home. So the first thing is to have XAMPP installed. If you have it installed, make sure your Apache and MySQL servers are running. And after that, you need to install Composer, which you can download it here. Download it and make sure that it's installed. After that, you also need to install the web server of Symfony, which is, it can be found here, I guess. So for Windows, there has been a new, here. There's a new executable package that you need to install. The command composer requires server is no longer working on Windows with version 5. So this will be the alternative for us. You need to download this file and install it. I'm going to show you how it works after you install it. But as a requirement, you need to also install Git, which isn't too much of a trouble. You just go to git-scm, download it here. So once you have everything installed, open a command prompt window and navigate back to the C drive, go to the XAMPP folder, htdoc folder. Here we're going to use the command composer create project Symfony skeleton and the name of the project, which will be demo for now. We're gonna wait till this gets installed. Perfect. So now we need to install some libraries. Let's start by installing the maker library. Oh, well, don't forget to navigate to the directory of the project. Require maker. We need to also install the annotations package. So composer require annotations. The next package for us is template, which is going to install the twig library. Next package for us is form and validation. Well, actually, we also need to install ORM. So composer require ORM. We have to wait until this package is installed. So everything is fine. The last package we're going to need is security, which we're going to install in a bit. Just make sure that we can see our project up and running. So I will open a web browser here and try to go to localhost demo public. So this is our Symfony project which we created under the directory of demo. And if you're on a Mac, make sure you have 8080 here. On Windows, the default port is 80, so you don't need to do anything. Just localhost /. Now, about the server, as I told you, if you try to install a server on the Symfony 5, you're going to get an error. So this error is because after you install the Symfony executable from the Symfony website, the one that I showed you, I'm going to find it again, here. After you download this one, and well, you close your command prompt and open it again, you're going to get a Symfony command. Symfony command is going to help you to run the server directly. So I can say server does not exist. Oh, sorry, it will start, I guess. Yeah. So once we do that, we're going to get a server, which is going to be built for our project. So we're going to go to our localhost now and the demo project. So this was our public folder for the project as we had it here. We're going to add a controller to we're going to use the make controller command to add a controller, and then we're going to install the security package. So let's go here and let's open a new command prompt because this one is running the server and I don't want to close it. Okay, so I have to go back to my directory, to the directory of the project, and here I'm going to use the php bin also make controller command to create controller for our application. Let's call it main or index controller or main controller, doesn't matter. Oh, sorry, make, not maker. Alright, so now we have a controller in our project. So the first thing that we need to do is to open our project with an editor. I'm going to open it with VS Code. Okay. So we go here, open folder, and navigate to the C drive, XAMPP, htdocs, and demo. So we have the project here. I'm going to close this welcome page. On the side of extensions, make sure that you have, alright, chill, please. Okay, that's not good. So make sure that we have the PHP package installed. It's going to help us developing the code. You have to try to make this smaller. Alright, so this is the controller that was created for us, and this is the end file that we need to edit. So here, the username is going to be root, and for side of Windows, we don't have a password yet. So the DB name, we're going to change this to demo, and I just need to make sure that I don't have any databases named demo here, so I have just a test, which I don't really need, but I'm going to remove it later. So this is going to be the database for this project. I have updated the username and password, and everything should be fine. We're going to save this file, close it, go back to the index controller. So as you see, index controller has one function which is routed to the /index address, and we can easily check that by going to the /index. Oops. Oh, sorry. So we shouldn't forget that the port here is 8000. So that was my mistake. We have to go to the localhost 8000 /index. And this is the message that we are getting from our controller, from this controller that we have here. Controller name, index controller, and controller name, index controller. So what we are going to implement now, it requires us to first install the security package. So we're going to install the security package by entering the command composer require security. We're going to wait for this package to be installed. So after this package is installed, we need to add a new user class. The user class is an entity class that is added by the security package. You don't need to create an entity yourself. So if you are using the command php bin console make entity, probably something is wrong. It's going to go wrong with your project. Best way is to make user directly. Make user will create a class called user, an entity class for you. So it's going to ask for the name of this class, which for us by default the user works the best. And do you want to store this user data? Yes. And the next question is, what is the property name for the unique display for the user? So it depends on what name you actually prefer. It doesn't really matter, but for the purpose of this application, I'm going to use username. You can use email, you can use phone ID, you can use whatever you want. Again, do we need to hash the user password? Yes, we do. And everything is done. Our user class is created. We can go back to our VS Code. So there are a few files that have been installed, as you see. So user, entity user. So repository, a repository for the user. And one file that is updated for us is the security file. So if we go to the config of our application and open the package, here you can see that the security file is updated. We have an encoder for the password. We have a provider, which is this user class with the property username. So this is the most important part. And also here we have access controls, which we're going to modify them later. So this is actually where we can provide requirements for identification for each path in our project. So now we need to go back to the command prompt, and we need to create an authentication class. We create an authentication class using php bin console command make auth. So it's going to ask us for the style of authentication, which for us is going to be a logging form authenticator. The name of the class, app custom authenticator, is fine with me. Okay, we have to enter it. So let's say custom authenticator. and choose a name for the controller class. It's going to be security controller by default, which we like it. And do you want to create a logout URL? Yes, by default. So after we added the authenticator class, in the project, we're going to get a new controller class. This controller class is going to be our security class for the project, which will handle our login and logout transactions. We're also going to get a custom authenticator. We covered this class in one of the sessions in college. I believe the functionality here is clear for us, and we don't really need to change much of it. The only part that we need to change is what happens in the function on authentication success. So if we have a successful authentication, what we're going to do after it. So here for now we are throwing an error to say that we don't have a valid redirection. So all you need to do is to say which page you want to open after a user logs into your application. So if you go to the browser again and try to open the login page, you're going to see this login information form. So we haven't added the Bootstrap libraries yet, so that's why we're not getting that fancy looking forms. We're going to do that in a second, but it's important to note that this page is created by the security package, not by us. Alright, so in order to get this fancy looking Bootstrap form, which is not so fancy right now, all you need to do is find the Bootstrap CDN. So search for Bootstrap 4, go to the Bootstrap website. If you're in college, try to use, oh, actually they are stack path, so I don't think there will be a problem. Some of these links are blocked in Internet College, so make sure that you're using the right links. Add the CSS library, and also make sure to add the JavaScript libraries as well. And two libraries that we are adding are mainly, one of them is the jQuery, the other one is a delivery for JS, and the third one is the Bootstrap JavaScript library. The order in which we add these libraries is important, so make sure to follow it. And here you can create a div with a class container to support your body of any part of the body of your code. So this will be the container to cover our form. And one last thing to do for the form that we have is to make sure that we have this line added here, which is, well, we need it later for registration forms, just to make sure that you have this line added. So take that YAML file in your packages folder. So that will be it for now. So here we have a sign-in page. However, if I try to sign in with any username and password, I'm going to get an error. The error is that there's no database, so we haven't created our database yet, and we haven't updated the database with respect to the user entity class. So we're going to create the database by using the PHP in console doctrine database create command, if I'm not wrong. Alright, so our database is created. So the next thing that we need to do is force the update command to add the user to the user entity called user to our database. So I'm going to run the schema update with the force switch. So here, if we go to the local host again and try php myadmin, we hope to see a demo database with a user class, which the structure of this user class is a username, a role, and a password, and of course an ID. So now we have the database running. If we go back and try to sign in again, the username could not be found. Well, this makes sense because we don't have any registration form so far. So the next step is to create a registration form and to allow the users to sign up first before signing in. So in order to create a registration page, first we need to create a controller for it. So php bin console make controller command. We're going to create a register controller. This register controller is created for us. We're going to open this register controller. So what we need to do is we need to route the register with the name register to a register function, where in this function we want to create a form. So the form is created from create form builder function, and here we're going to add a few items to our form, username of course, and also a password and a password repeat. So the password is going to have a type of repeated type class. So the repeated type is, I hope that I can get the auto connection here, which is not working. We have to import it later. So for the repeated type class, we need some attributes. We need a type attribute, which is going to be the password type class with double quotations. Required is true. We need a password to register. The first option is going to be, it's going to have actually a label with the name password. And the second option is going to have a label, again, with the text confirm password or repeat password, whatever you like. So this is going to be our repeated type as a form, and we need to get the form from this form builder. So the next thing that we need to do after creating this form is to render it. So after we receive the form, we're going to return this render. So we're going to render our index of register page. So it's going to be register index dot html.trig, and we're going to pass this form. So the form that we are passing, the form variable create view function. Alright, just make sure that we are adding the libraries here, component, form, extension, core, type, repeated type, and also we want to make sure that we are adding the password type too, so everything should be fine. So let's open the browser again, and let's go to the localhost register. Oh, my bad, this has to be localhost 8000. Okay, so the problem here is that sorry. The problem here is that I have made a mistake here. These should be options, not option. And another problem here. So we're going to fix this problem by removing the content of the index HTML file that we have under the registration package. So here we don't need the content that is already present in this file. What we are going to need is basically redefining the body block with the name of the form that we created for registration. So here we're going to add the name of the form that we added inside the registration controller. So everything should be okay so far. We should be able to see our registration page. If I refresh this, hopefully we're getting our registration form. So our registration form needs to also have a submit button, which we're going to add it, in case that we missed it. So at the end, let's add a register button with type submit class and some attributes to make it look like the bootstrap button. Yep, you are right. So let's, well, let's add this type here, library. So we're going to get the form properly. So this form will help us to register users. However, we haven't had any sort of functionality for this form when we click on register button. So the information is going to be passed to our controller, but nothing really is happening. So we need to write some code here in order to make sure that we register the user upon receiving a submission to this form. So we're going to start by saying form handle request where this request is provided for us through a parameter. So here we're going to say if we receive a submitted form, so if a form is submitted, we are going to retrieve the data of that form, and then from that data, we're going to create a new user with the respecting username and password in order to save that user in our database, so we can actually use them later to perform login and authentication for our users. So let's create a new user object. Let's save the username of this user, set username with data username, and also let's save the password of this user by data. Okay, so for the password, we actually need to encode it as a we need to encode this password as the hash function which we used before. So we need to add the user password encoder interface here. We're going to call it pass encoder. So this library here we add, it needs to be imported. We're going to import this library later. So here, after importing this library, we have to use this pass encoder in order to encode our password, provided the password. So from the data of password, we're going to save this inside the user object as with a $sign, of course. So we saved the username and password. Now we are going to use the entity manager in order to save this user object. So let's retrieve the entity manager object. This get return manager em persist given the user object. Then make sure that the changes are flush to the dataset. And here, after this, we're going to return the redirect to our own login page, which is going to be app login. You can also double check that by going to the command prompt and running the PHP Bean console debug okay, yeah. So there are some errors in our code. Not errors, we only need to make sure that we include the libraries. So one of them is Symfony components, HTTP foundation requests, and the other one is going to be imported from the Symfony components, security core encoder user pass encoder interface. Alright, so let's try this one more time. And as you see, the name of the login page is app login by default. So that's the name that we're going to use here to redirect to that page. So hopefully we're going to get our registration page working properly. So after this step, we can actually try to see if our registration page works. So let's go here, let's enter a password and register. Alright, so okay, we also need to import our user class, which was not imported. So import entity user. Okay. Alright, so it should be app entity user. I'm so sorry about it. So the last thing is a typo here, which I missed the $sign before data. So hopefully this will be the registration page. So let's try to see if we can sign in. So when we sign in, we're going to get an error. So this error is not bad, actually. If you go back to the security controller, sorry, to the authenticator, the custom authenticator, you remember that we generated an error here by ourselves. So in order to prevent this, we're going to return a new redirect response to the one of the URLs in our application. So we're going to generate from using the URL generator. We're going to generate a new URL. So this URL is basically name. So in the index controller of our application, the name was index, right? So this is what I'm going to render actually. I'm going to render index. So let's go back here and I'm rendering the index page. So if we try to log in again, oh, we are missing something here. If we refresh this page, we're going to see our index page. So now we are authenticated by the user. And you can actually check that by installing Composer require profiler, I guess, if I'm not wrong. Oh, I believe it's the profiler. So if we go back here and if we refresh this, yeah. So here you can see that we are logged in as Mir and authenticated. And if we go to the logout, we are now not authenticated anymore. If we open index page, we are authenticated, but as an anonymous user, not Mir, not an unauthenticated user. So you can go here and inside the security YAM file, you can define access controls here. So you can say, for example, you don't really want people to access index without having a role. So you want them to have a user role. So let's go back here. If I refresh this page, now I will be redirected to the login. Even if I open index again, it will redirect me to the login because I need to be authenticated as a user in order to access that page. So once I authenticate myself, I can access this page without any problem. So this is basically the main concept of having security in your application. Now, if you need in case of our project, if you need other entity classes can go and use the command php in console, make entity, and then start creating entities. So one of the entities that you might need for this project is an entity to hold items of the merchandise. You can also have uh, another user entity, but you can also use the default security user class for that purpose. So far, all that you need to know about security is what's covered right now. Just adding the packages, having this register controller to have this very simple form for registration, and that will be all.